Hi everyone, my name is Edith Romero, and I'm going to be talking to you about gestation crates and specifically on the side as to why we should have them and why they benefit not only pork production, but also as it also benefits as an agriculture commodity. So moving on to straight, let's jump into it. So what are gestation crates? So what basically are, it's a metal enclosure and it's used in really a big intensive pig farming in which the female breeding style may be kept for her during her pregnancy. The enclosure, if you can see in this picture, it shows that it is 7 feet by 2 feet. This is kind of like an animated version of what a basic gestation crate can look like. So it's a little, if you look at this picture, it's a little bit bigger than an average sow. So I mean, and by this I mean average. So some of them can be smaller and maybe a little bit bigger. So what is something good about gestation crates? It's that it allows for feed control and also water control. That's what I wrote over here. Has like a kind of like a piping system that goes to each individual sow and allows them to um, drink at their pleasure and also allow feed control for each individual sow. So history on like why were they created? So the crate stall is the most common system for keeping a pregnant sows in the world. The farrowing crate was developed before the breeding or gestation crate in the United States, and by the late 1960s, the farrowing crate was common. So it's kind of like they took the gestation crate and they kind of made a farrowing crate for when these sows gave birth. So the crate or stall, as to why we really have it. So why was it created? And the main reason was to allow for them to be kept at high numbers. And by this, I mean we're able to keep more sows in a specific area. It was created to allow for control of individual feed. And like I said, by controlling this feed, we can control how much a certain sow intakes food. So if a sow's on the heavier side of the scale, we can cut back on her feed. And if she's not as much as we believe she should be weighing, then we can go ahead and increase this. And we don't have that fear of another sow eating that specific pig's food because they're all in crated, so they can't get to each other's feed, and this allows for prevention of social stress. By preventing social stress, it makes them happier. They're still able to interact with each other because we all know that pigs are really social animals. They really want to interact with others. So by having these crates, by having them barred instead of just panels of sheet metal, it allows them to interact with each other and still kind of like saying hi to her neighbors, but it prevents social stress on them from like pecking orders, because we all know there's that whole hierarchy in the animal kingdom about this one's more dominant, this one's not as dominant. So we don't have that. Actually protects them not only by preventing social stress, but also physical. So it protects them from getting injured. It protects them from having bites, scratches, broken legs. It prevents them from all that stuff by having these crates kind of separate each pig. Another thing is they protect the workers. So if you look in this picture, you can see there's a little walkway where workers can check individual pig. So when you're checking a pig, you don't want to really worry about another one coming in, knocking out your legs. So this kind of protects them in a way they can handle and look at each individual pig and see how each one is doing. So another thing as to why they were created and why it's really good to have is the allotment for planned manure replacement. And by this, what I'm trying to say is we all know that manure to humans is really toxic, especially pig manure. So it allows them to keep it where we want them to have it. So by having these pigs only face one way, we all know where the manure is going to come out of. So this allows us to manage it and clean it up, and keeping these crates as clean as possible for them, as well as having us possibly use that manure as a commodity to the contribution of pig production. So we can use the manure on the land to grow, let's say, corn, and then once the corn is grown, it ties in back to the pig, and it's a big old cycle that goes around and around. So this is why another reason why they were created too, as well. Moving on to a brief history of the gestation crates, also along tying into why they were created. So they were created in the early 1900s. By the 1960s, in the middle, they were really popular in the U.S. And Europe. One of the leaders in sow keeping was the Lubbock swine breeders, and it started by Earl Liner and his family. Into why he was important into the industry. They started with only about 300 sows. For pig production, that's not really a lot. However, they grew really rapidly to 1,500 to supply demand, and they sold different types of breeds. Um, so with advanced swine genetics and stuff, the reason why they're important, Earl Liner and his family, is they were the first to get published in a newspaper. And by getting published, it allows them to get exposure not only for their farm, but also for what they created. A lot of this kind of like, it was like a domino effect, and it showed other pig producers kind of in a way how they can improve their farm and production. So through this, they got an idea as to how they created that, and thus also making the gestation crate even stronger. By stronger, I mean, if you look in this picture was taken in like around 1970s. It shows the first use of tether crates, which I wouldn't really call it a crate, only because what they are. So there is no, if you look in this picture, there is no crate to put these pigs in between, but rather what it was, kind of, if you think about it, a leash in a way. Problems with this, however, where it constricted, it really constricted the hogs, and it made lesions. It was hard for them to lay down, and when they're standing up, it was just uncomfortable because their head was always facing downwards. So that wasn't as good. And because it was really not really good for the welfare of the animal welfareists and activists soon came together, and they put a stop to it really quick, because of the restriction they had on these on these pigs. The restriction on them wasn't as bad as it was in a gestation crate. So by this I mean gestation crates, they saw it as a better alternative to these tether crates. Tether crates were kind of like a cheaper version of a gestation crates, but because they were banned so quickly, farmers were kind of in a way forced to move to the gestation crate for the benefit of the animal. They thought it was a better opportunity for farmers to keep them as close together as they wanted, but also having those pigs safe as well. So why do poor producers have this? Like, if they see it as kind of like a bad thing, why? And the main reason is for space wise. So the more sows we're able to keep in a space, the more production we can also have, and the more production we have, it would also serve demand. Having enough pork won't increase the price. So this will also help other ag commodities. And by this, we agriculture and its commodities all really tie in together. Like the example I said earlier about the pigs and how corn and pigs go together and all this. So it really kind of keeps the commodities at a balanced rate. Looking at some kind of like cultural aspects, I kind of made like a diagram of the good and the bad of them. And if you look in this graph here, you can see that pork, no matter how increase and decline that it had, it stayed pretty much at a consistent rate. And the reason for this is through the use of gestation crates, we're able to keep the demand kind of stabilized. So there's not too much of an increase and there's not too much of a decrease. So that's the good side of it. We all know that in the United States, pig is really glorified. We eat it for breakfast, whether it be some bacon, for lunch, eating it in a hot dog, and for dinner, probably having with turkey and ham. So we all know pigs really glorified. We eat it a lot here in our culture in the United States. However, one of the bad things is that of the use of packing so much sows together, a lot of animal rights believe it's not right for them to be able to not move and not be able to fully extend themselves. So this kind of leads into the next thing that I want to talk about is current events that deal with gestation crates. So a really important thing was Proposition 2. So Proposition 2 here in California was really voted on according to statistic-wise. So the result of California Proposition 2, over 8 million voted yes and 4 million voted no. So the yes, it was over 75%, which was more votes than we ever had in the history of California. So what Proposition 2 is, it required the calves, egg-laying hens, and pigs, how they're being kept. So it made the producers of these animals kind of up their standards, and allow these pigs to be able to lie down, stand up, and fully extend their limbs. However, one bad thing because of this proposition is it created problems for farmers and it made them pay more. So they created these gestation crates and had them to uphold demand. But because they were here in California outlawed, and also if other producers want to bring their pigs meat over here, we have to know that it was followed by biting California's law. And so this also contributed to the production of pigs. So the demand went up for pigs, it stayed the same. However, the cost went up because farmers had to renovate their crates to make sure they follow law. And by the cost going up, this created kind of like a spike in pork production because the farmers had to use their money to facilitate the needs of these pigs. So by doing that, pork production goes up. That was really like a bad thing about it. But one of the upsides about still having gestation crates is another new development of a gestation crate. So this goes in hand into Proposition 2. So if you look in this picture, you can see that the pigs can actually fully turn around through the use of these chains and a moving kind of, it's like a door, moving fence. However, one of the bad things with having to do this, again, was the cost. This was really costly for farmers to redo their whole barn or barns, multiple, for these pigs because of the law. So what this new improvement, what it is it goes along with Proposition 2, so the pigs can turn around fully, they can lay down, and they can extend their limbs.